You ever wake up completely out of it and wonder what it could be? I'm talking about when it's truly a mystery. No alcohol, no medications, or binging on the latest Netflix drop. Just literally feeling hit or miss. More mornings than you'd like. A phenomenon that has you pondering. Do I have a non-alcoholic hangover? Should I get up on the other side of the bed? Or is there something else at play here? Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. And before we get going, if you are interested in joining our weekly health challenges, where we implement meaningful change habit by habit, week by week in a sustainable way, check out the Patreon, link in the description below. We are on week 6. We're just getting started. So if you're interested in joining the community, you know where to find it. As for the question presented just a moment ago, this was something I noticed when I first started condensing my feeding windows in the name of longevity. And the true reality of the situation was there could be, and probably are, a number of different culprits for this dazed and confused start of the day. But for this video, I want to hone in on one of the factors that I've personally experienced to be a big influence, a mediator of both objective and subjective rest and recovery metrics, which happens to be the timing of my biggest meal relative to my nightly bedtime. A factor that may even become more important if you are a practitioner of intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding. So today we're going to dive into 3 main topics. First, a look at the current data around the impact of meal timing as it pertains to sleep quality. Second, the potential big impact that late night meals have on the body, especially in the context of condensing your meals into strategic feeding windows, aka fasting. And finally, some strategic tweaks that can be explored around meal timing. Tweaks that have personally worked wonders on my sleep quality. Without further ado, let's eat some knowledge. The current scientific state of late night meals. To be honest, this topic is a little bit of a black box because much of the research is spread wide and thin in their methods and objectives, making the current data on this interesting and relevant topic mixed. There have been several studies throughout the years that indicate late night meals can impact subjective sleep quality, but there's also been literature showing the opposite. For example, one finding that neither a 4-hour or 6-hour time-restricted feeding protocol, where all meals were consumed by 7 p.m., had any impact on subjective sleep quality in obese adults. But the problem with much of the existing data is the fact that it relies on self-reporting. Hence the word subjective. Maybe the most thorough data comes from a recent 2021 randomized control trial, which objectively measured healthy participants' sleep using an EEG, or a machine that tracks brainwaves, in a sleep laboratory. In the study, one group consumed their dinner 5 hours before bedtime, the early group, while the other consumed their dinner 1 hour prior. And the results were pretty indifferent, showing no substantial change in sleep architecture and quality between the two groups. Many people would take this and conclude that meal timing doesn't matter when it comes to sleep quality. But here's the thing, both groups didn't really get great sleep. I mean, it was okay, with an average of around 1.5 hours of deep sleep and a little over an hour of REM sleep. But I mean, no one's winning a sleep quality Dundie with those numbers, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if Michael has a Dundie for best sleeper, Stanley. And then when you take a deeper look at the meal timing, the feeding windows in both groups were 14 to 15 hours long, with the early eating group having a snack before bed, which then opens up the conversation for circadian rhythm misalignment, a topic that we have gone into detail here on this channel quite a bit. So you may be wondering, why is this a potentially important subject in the first place, especially for the intermittent fasters out there? And what's going on the inside? Big meal, bodily impact. Short story short, no. Extremely long story short, there's probably a few things going on. We've reviewed in many other videos, and most recently in this insulin melatonin video and shift work video here, that eating at times that conflict with our innate circadian biology or our sleep-wake cycles can and does wreak havoc on our cellular and metabolic function, causing us to become more glucose intolerant, more insulin resistant, and overworking key organs that would otherwise be resting and rejuvenating. For example, digestion is a heavy-duty task for our body. It requires a large amount of energy with many systems' attention quite some time after eating, on average 4 to 6 hours. This concentrates blood flow to the intestines and elevates core body temperature, which we want to go in the opposite direction for optimal sleep quality, all while taking away blood flow from other vital systems. And this wouldn't be a bad thing unless it was eating into, pun intended, the designated rebuild, repair, detox functions that are designed to take place each and every night. And since I know you're here because you have your longevity in mind, these are all things that we want to be in the top 10% of, not in the 2 standard deviations of the average metabolically sick human, right? That, my friends, is how we end up maximizing health span to the very, very outer limits of our lifespan, or how we accomplish our evil longevity plan. Okay, you caught me. I just wanted a reason to put Dr. Evil in this. Sorry. Throw me a freaking bone, why don't ya? Right. Zip it. And big meals before bed likely hold you back in this regard, rather than enhancing the mission. Maybe not making you get terrible sleep, but quite possibly holding you back from your true potential. As I highlight in this video, about how I get around 3 hours of deep sleep per night, nearly double the average for adults. And here is why you should care even more if you are a practitioner of fasting, intermittent or time-restricted feeding. From being in the fasting community for some time now, I think it's safe to say that most people structure their feeding window around society's most social meal of the day, dinner. And that means that most fasters out there are probably having a larger biggest meal of the day compared to the average Joe and Jane. And depending on the timing, this could be activating the peripheral circadian clocks in all of the digestive organs into the wee hours of the morning, not only impacting sleep onset due to the increased probability of reflux, digestive distress, and elevated core body temperature, but also sleep quality, potentially leaving you waking up after a solid 8 hours of sleep, feeling, well, hungover, tired, lethargic, totally out of it, more days than not. And this may have even become accepted as a cold hard fate. And if you're asking how I know, because this was me a few years ago. I've seen it firsthand in my personal data, tracked by the infamous Oura Ring. And it has driven me to implementing an early time-restricted feeding protocol, which I've been following over the past few years. Throughout much of 2019, I followed a 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 18-6 protocol that transitioned into an early OMAD protocol in 2020. With this shift, I noticed a very interesting 15% bump in deep sleep, bringing me to the aforementioned average of around 3 hours per night, as well as improvements in key rest and recovery metrics, heart rate variability, and resting heart rate, adding to the already impressive numbers. I also did a 6-month stint of alternate day fasting, and as you can see for yourself, the nightly difference between these two key metrics was pretty wild. Like I said, we're not here to be average, and if you accept being average here in modern society, you're accepting being metabolically sick. We're here to optimize our pretty cool meat suit and 5-pound mushy membrane. And the only way you do that is by being a practitioner of your own longevity. So here's some tactical components of my strategy that you could potentially explore. Mastering the timing of meal. First, a disclaimer. Actually, 2 disclaimers. Just because this works for me does not necessarily mean it's the best protocol for you. Everyone's perfect protocol is different and is based off a number of different variables. And in the end, the best protocol is the one that you can consistently follow. So here's a simple high-level guideline or methodology that I like to use and think about. Generally speaking, the shorter the feeding window, the more important it probably is to add a few hours of digestion time before bed. Remember, generally speaking, the shorter your windows, the bigger your meals. For example, I know a lot of people who follow an OMAD or 2MAD protocol and end up having their major meals of the day around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And this only makes me wonder what potential longevity benefits they're leaving on the table when it comes to the most foundational component of all things health and longevity: sleep. Why not enjoy both? I've been practicing early eating for a while now, and after the slow and sometimes frightening transition to earlier cutoff times, sleep quality, as told by the Oura Ring and my subjective feel, has improved. As of now, like I said before, I follow an OMAD protocol with what I like to call a 3-hour grazing window, opening up the feeding window at 10:30 a.m. and closing it around 1:30 p.m. And I've personally found a lot of success with it. It not only makes me feel good, which may be the most important, but I also know that it's upregulating a lot of longevity pathways that we talk about so frequently on this channel. And before you go writing any comments down there, I know, I get the fact that a midday focus protocol like that simply isn't feasible or desired for a large percentage of the population. So here are some common guidelines across the board that can be explored. First, pick your desired feeding window duration and reverse engineer your start and stop times accordingly, a process and methodology we break down here. If possible, aim to finish all of your energy consumption, both food and drink, about 3 hours before your normal bedtime. And yes, you should have a normal bedtime. If you need help with that one, check out this vid. This is something that is easiest to deploy over the time frame of weeks to months. Next, if you can refocus your biggest meal of the day to earlier and make your last meal strategically smaller and nutritious while keeping that 3-hour no energy before bed, this will allow you to enjoy the social friends and family time of dinner. And post-meal, especially post-biggest meal, get a little movement. This helps in all sorts of ways, including aiding with digestion and stabilizing glucose levels. I personally try to do this after every meal, but definitely, like I said before, after that biggest meal of the day. And when you combine this with the magic of real food and sleep hygiene, you have a pretty powerful equation that will not only put your pretty cool meat suit and 5-pound mushy membrane in a position to optimize your Z's, but also ramp up the cellular and metabolic benefits of a fasted state while doing it, positioning yourself ever so better for that longevity thing. Now, you may also ask, how do I know if it's working? And I'll tell you, don't sweat it. I got a video for you, all about how you can delineate subjectively and objectively if you're getting good sleep. Let me just reiterate though, everyone's perfect protocol is different, but the only way you find these things out is if you explore them. And if you've implemented something like intermittent fasting, there's a good chance you have your health in mind, which is awesome. Keep it up. Optimizing your Z's while doing so is just another piece of the puzzle. A puzzle that we keep getting new pieces to with every piece of research that hits the scientific streets, kind of like a never-ending puzzle. Wonder what happens if you lose a piece. All right, production teams, line up. Let's just do a once-over of the room, okay? Yeah, I'll catch you guys in a little, okay.